Hey boys, how we doing today?
Please. Going
Let's.
well, man.
Sorry about the thumbnail. I did say last week I was going to start leveling it up. I got a
No,
few
you
more in the.
definitely
I got
did.
a few more in the pipeline too. I got the next 2 or 3 weeks ready to go.
Yeah, you definitely leveled it up on that one for sure. I got to pick up my game a little bit.
And who doesn't love Scooby Doo, man? Let's be real.
Yeah, no, true.
This is true.
And mine's just like product placement. Like I'm hoping for maybe a sponsorship now. We'll see how we go.
Oh, 100%. Well, if we didn't get it from the sweet chili sauce, it's fucking not happening.
Hey, I want to start off with not calling out a coach, but calling out a protocol. Now, I circulated this with you boys yesterday, and we had a really good laugh, but then we're really concerned that
Mm-hmm.
this is still going on. This plan was given to a couple of people that competed recently by this one coach. We're not going to call out who it is, but we're gonna we're gonna talk about the plan. Now, this plan is it's the day out of show day, right? So it's one day out. It has 5 meals in it, and every meal also has a supplement protocol, right? And we're basically I'll tell you about the meals first. So every meal is fish and rice cakes, and there's also some meals there with fish and white potato. That's it. So that's all that they're eating for the day. And then within every meal, there's supplements. And basically, the supplements across the meals are no dose tablets, dandelion tea, laxatives, and fluid away tablets. And one thing that MG just called out just before we started the potty is the meal before bed, so meal number 5, has no dose tablets in it, which if anyone doesn't know no dose, they're caffeine tablets.
Yeah, I think they're
And
100
then right
milligrams per
after
tab.
that, yeah. And then
How
right
many
after
tabs was
that,
it?
it has
One before, but they've already had 4 or 5 that day, I think.
they've
But
already had 4 or 5 that day. So they've got one in their last meal. And then there's a comment about sleep and how important sleep is and make sure you get 8 hours. Now, if you've had a no-dose tablet every single meal, including your last meal before bed, I don't know how the fuck you're going to get to sleep. Really, I don't. But Scotty, I know you love this stuff, right? What is the method of the dandelion tea, the laxatives, and the fluid away tablets? What what's he trying to achieve?
Well,
So I just called out the coaches a heap. Whoops. I'll leave
okay.
that in there.
Again, I can't really remember what was on I remember there was a lot. I remember the Danny, the whatever it was, fucking root tea, and then lots of fish and whatnot. But I can only assume that this individual is perhaps trying to move water and move it into an intracellular space instead of having it in an extracellular space. But we've covered a zillion times on here why that doesn't work. But the natural diuretic effect, again, we've spoken about your body has hormones that your body produces to prevent you becoming hyponatremic slash preventing you from becoming dehydrated. So what happens is if you're taking this tea, and I don't know a ton about it because I've never administered it and I've never taken it.
Mhm.
I know chamomile tea because I drink that sometimes and it's
Yeah.
nice. But
Well,
is it dandy?
dandelion
Is that?
tea is supposed to make you go to the toilet, urinate, right?
Yeah, okay. That's the idea. It's designed, and I'm guessing the fluid away is also a form of diuretic to try and remove water. But
Yeah.
again, we've spoken about your body holds fluid regulation under a very tight balance. So, and again, your kidneys, their job is to regulate that. So if it senses that blood plasma osmolality is reducing or the concentration is diluted, then essentially you'll see an increase in aldosterone. You'll see an increase in arginine vasopressin, which is our antidiuretic hormone. So the hypothalamus secretes that hormone, and then basically it's letting your body know that the fluid balance is changing and it needs to make some adjustments in order to attenuate that. So what happens is you'll take fluid from where you have it, which we've spoken about. So when your body needs something that you're not giving it, it will take it from where it can get it from. So we hold fluid within inside the muscle cells, so intracellularly. So all you're doing is to try and combat that ratio is you're pulling water from where you're trying to put it and you're sticking it in an area where you don't want it.
Yeah.
So it's literally the exact opposite of what you should be doing.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So
Yeah. Have you seen that clip in Billy Madison where he tells that story about Miss Lippy, about the dog who lost his way? And in the end, the judge goes, "That is literally the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. I award you no points. Everyone in the room is now dumber for hearing you speak. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul."
Yeah.
That's literally, so when I hear that sort of stuff, that's literally, I just start thinking about Billy Madison and the Miss Lippy story.
We're here to
it's
help you, Billy.
it's so fucking dumb. Okay,
Oh,
so
look. Ugh.
you've got dandelion tea trying to make you go to the toilet. You've got fluid away tablets, which I'm sure it's trying to pull it from somewhere, because
You're
you're
trying to move
retaining.
extracellular fluid and
Yeah,
stick it in an intracellular space.
which is not happening, right?
No.
That person's only allowed to drink 1 liter of water max for that day, which includes all the tea, right?
Mhm.
And then they've got to have laxatives pretty much every second meal.
Yeah, six laxatives.
6 laxatives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's really fucking dangerous because the other side of
Yes.
that, not only you're dehydrated, but you are a severe case for hyponatremia. So when you're losing that much fluid, okay, you're obviously losing when you go to the bathroom, we excrete sodium when we go to the bathroom. You're diluting blood plasma osmolality. So straight away, you're going to have aldosterone levels increase so that you stop doing that. Now, what happens is when that hormone's secreted, its job is to get you to reabsorb more sodium. And where sodium goes, water follows. So again, all you're doing is you're going to be losing sodium, but your body's going to try and absorb as much of it as it can and to retain as much fluid as it can,
Yeah.
leaving you with a shitload of edema. So if you want to have really washed out abs, then you're going the right way about it. But forget the aesthetics of it. Like you could end up in the hospital. So pulmonary edema,
Yeah.
encephalopathy, so swelling on the brain. Like you could
Yeah.
go into a coma and you could die. So
So
that's the level of extremes we're talking about here. So as much as I made a joke about the Billy Madison thing before, if this is a sort of protocol that's been placed on you, like you need to leave your coach straight away, and you don't ever want to follow anything like that because it's very dangerous and it can be deleterious to your health and you could die.
yeah. So they were not allowed to have salt that day either. So
Even more so. So then you're
even
almost
worse.
guaranteeing that you're going to be hyponatremic.
Yep. And they had to have antihistamine at the start of the day and then 2 aspirins before they go to bed. So let's thin that blood out so you can just
Mm.
so fucking dangerous. So these people that took this, the person that told me, they were really off on show day. Like not off physically. I mean, like they felt sick. They felt really, really sick. Yeah.
Understandably. And the antihistamine, I've heard of people doing that before. Like as someone who gets hay fever, I've never done it, but I've heard of people doing it for that reason, just in case. But if you're taking any type of non-steroid anti-inflammatory, that
Mm.
actually reduces the rate of gastric emptying. So all you're doing there is
Yep.
not only you reduce, so if you're trying to ingest food, there's a very, very good chance that that food is going to be stuck in that small intestine. You're not going to be able to, it's going to struggle to make its way into the small intestine because when you're taking on board that NSAID, your rate of, as I mentioned, gastric emptying is severely reduced. So the whole bloated stomach distension is inevitable. But not only that, you're not having any fluid on board either. So it's just adding fuel to the fire. So that would definitely be a big, big no-no for me as well. Again, if you've got a massive migraine, which you probably do, and that's maybe why he gave you the aspirin, but that's because you're fucking dehydrated.
Yeah.
So again, you're just making things worse. That's not going to necessarily do you too much harm from a health perspective, but it's going to destroy the look and it's going to leave you with quite a lot of gastrointestinal discomfort, I would have thought.
Yeah. I just can't believe we're seeing this shit. I really can't believe it. And this is
No,
not the first time we've heard this stuff. Like, that's the first time I've seen a plan that bad. I've seen some pretty bad ones, but that one's just plain dangerous. Like, that's plain dangerous, that plan.
what was the show day nutrition like, out of curiosity?
Got no idea. That's the only
Yeah.
plan I got sent, and that was for the day before. Yeah, yeah, and it was for females. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what was the caffeine dosage? About 400 megs of caffeine?
Yeah, because it was basically how many no doses was it? There's
No, there's
one,
three. There's 300.
two, there's three. Are they 100 each?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Yeah, they're 100 each, so it's 300. But you're having 100 in your last meal before bed.
Yeah, so that's only going to screw your sleep. But you're taking on more caffeine, you're reducing water, you've completely lost all salt, and you're taking diuretics. So, as I said, saying that you would be a candidate for pulmonary edema or delusional encephalopathy, that swelling on the brain, is not out of the question because your blood sodium levels would be very, very, very low, and you'd be extremely dehydrated. So, if this person didn't end up in hospital, honestly, it's probably a miracle.
Yeah, and no surprise that they were so sick on show day. No fucking surprise.
Maybe they didn't follow everything perfectly, and maybe that's why they didn't end up in hospital.
I hope so. I fucking hope so. I hope that has had the foresight to be like, this is not right. This many no dose, this many laxative tablets, this many fluid away tablets. This just doesn't sound right.
And it screams to me someone that potentially is working with the enhanced side. But even then, most of those coaches now don't go down that path because again, they have it. Well, if you're a good coach, you understand physiology, and even on that front, you don't need to do those things. Like you look at the top guys, and they don't do that,
Yeah. Well, this was for natural athletes.
which is even worse.
Yeah. And the coach, I believe, MG, you might know, did they compete non-naturally?
Not sure, man. I'm
Okay.
not sure.
Sure.
But if you look at the totals, man, it's 20 fluid away tablets, 6 laxatives, an antihistamine, aspirin, and 3 no-dose.
And all the dandelion tea after every single meal.
So there's a lot. And this is the thing that stood out to me. I'm guessing that just on this day alone, there's 6 to 7 items that you've never used before that you would have used for the first time.
Yeah. So,
I'm guessing none of this was used leading up. So one day out, you've introduced 6 to 7 new things.
yeah. So dumb. So dumb.
Yeah.
And like, we've obviously seen some really, really dumb things. We've taken on some new clients recently after shows, MG. And obviously we've heard about some coaching protocols that have absolutely blown our mind. Like, and I don't know if you want to talk about any of your experiences, but I've taken on someone recently that I encourage all clients to ask me as many questions as they possibly can so that we're all on the same page and they have all the knowledge they need. And the questions that this person is asking me are really basic questions about training, nutrition, supplementation, peak week, shows, how to register for shows. And this person came from what looks like from the outside's perspective, a very reputable coach that markets himself very, very well and actually sells education and what people would think would be, someone to a go-to person for education, which we call across us three as regurgitation, which they've been called out and found out about that too. But it's just crazy what's going on in the industry at the moment with coaches. And we'll go through some questions in a second with some other people who have been asking about certain things that they've asked their coach, and their coaches are like, no, don't do that. And now they're asking us what we think, which is just absolutely crazy. So you should have an open channel of communication with your coach. I know this person that I took on, their coach was not very welcoming when it came to questions. They would actually tell them, stop asking me questions and just do it. So if you're getting those kind of responses from your coach, not good. Ask us, send us podcast questions. We don't mind answering them, but you can't go on like that. You can't just keep sending us questions when those questions should be answered by your coach, and they should give some rationale behind it. And then if you want to check with us. We'll be happy to help you out. But you should be able to ask any question of your coach. They should be able to explain it. And coaches should want to explain it, should want to educate you. You should be getting education from your coach, not just a dictatorship and you're just told what to do.
Yeah. I think the big thing for me as well, man, is like I ran some training for a couple of my coaches this morning just on really quality check-ins. So we set out a map of this is what we're going to cover in every check-in, all right? We're going to start here, we're going to go through the week, and we're going to do some side-by-side comparisons. Then we're going to talk about, what the plan is moving forward. Then we're going to get into the training and we're going to set some training progressions. But in the check-in, it's really about making sure that I'm making sure none of my team are just telling the athletes what to do. It's like, this is why you're doing it. Because I've got clients now who, if you think about their training, I barely have to go in and auto-regulate any numbers, right? Because I know they're going to either try and add a little bit of weight, some reps. It makes it so much easier. And when I'm educating them on the nutrition side of things and why we're making moves and, why we stay in a growth phase for a certain period of time, or, why we bring refeeds in, this is not information I'm keeping to myself. Giving it out to your client or your athlete is not going to affect your business. It's not going to hurt you. It's actually going to make things far, far better. And I always have a bit of a philosophy that, I want my team as educated and as knowledgeable eventually one day where they know exactly why I'm making a decision.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just from feedback that I've been getting recently, it seems to be that there's a lot of, let's just say, maybe poor communication and not willingness to share information with your athletes, which I think is setting yourself up for failure personally. But there's definitely a lot of it out there, and I suppose it's coming more apparent. And now that there's channels like us, to talk about these types of things, hopefully we start to see things change a little bit. And equally, I want to say, like, there's some fucking amazing coaches out there too, right? There's some fucking incredible coaches some of whom we talk to and some whom we don't, but we know that they're doing great things out there. So this is not just about like saying that, everyone's not doing good things as good as we are. There's some fucking amazing coaches, but there's still a minority of people who are doing some fucking terrible, dangerous shit. Obviously, what MT and we spoke about this morning is like the top end. And I think it's probably the first time that something physical has been circulated where people are looking at it going, holy shit, you're actually giving this out to someone.
Yeah.
And it being scary and dangerous. But for the most part, I think a lot of people are doing things greatly. But I think the message needs to be like, if you don't know the answer to something or you're not sure, just reach out and ask. Like, don't wing it. Like, all you would have to do if you were a coach coaching people and you weren't unsure is if you just worked with a really reputable coach yourself, you'd have your answers within a matter of weeks. Like, you'd be able to learn so quickly. So it's either maybe a little bit of pride that don't want to do the research and don't want to get the education to work it out. Don't want to invest the time into that, which is so fucking worth it. Or it's, it's a pride thing, which, you need to get over it. Because,
as we know, it's an arrogance and they think they know everything already.
And you need to get over that because you're talking about people's healths.
Yeah.
This is literally people's lives, their livelihoods. Like, I took over someone recently who, had we not have intervened when we did, we would have lost a freaking awesome competitor who has a massive future in the sport. Massive future.
Yeah, she does.
Like, and we just got that by chance, right? Because someone who works for Scott was there at the right time, a really, really good person who stepped in. But like, this is what's happening. It's this small percentage that are making, the rest of the industry, in instances not look reputable.
Yeah. And we're all about the experience and the longevity of the sport, right?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Like, I just think about, even for us, if people want to say, oh, but you guys make money, you coaches, you do this for a living. Can I tell you, the three of us, I know how all these boys coach because I've worked with both of them. The amount of time that we invest per athlete and how much we give because we love it so much versus if you look at the weekly fee, sometimes you guys would actually be surprised.
Yeah. Like, I think of it this way sometimes. I think it's like, if you go get a massage from a therapist, it's probably the same cost as what coaching costs for a full week. And you only see that therapist for like an hour.
Tops. Not even, man. Like, I don't know who's getting, $70, $80 massages.
Yeah.
Not for an hour. Not in Melbourne, maybe in Bali. But
man, you go to a chiro, it's, $80, $90 and they're only there 15 minutes. We're in the wrong game.
That's it. So,
but okay, there's some other coaching questions coming up, which we'll talk about, which are kind of just going to reiterate what we've already spoken about, how people need to be educated and also people need to be able to ask their coaches questions. But as we know, like, we're heading into the depths of season 8 at the moment. People are, between 3 to 8 weeks out roughly. And obviously there's a lot of prep feels going on. There's a lot of, as we've all been through it before, lack of energy, sleep's affected. Could be because you can't get to sleep or because you have to get up 3 times in the middle of the night to go to the toilet, which was like the case with me. Your strength might be dropping, your calories might be low. You can't enjoy social situations. You've got to get your steps in, and you just don't have the energy to converse with anyone else, but at least do the non-negotiables with prep. So a couple of things that people need to kind of understand is those prep feels, all those things you're feeling aren't going away, right? So as we kind of know, even post-comp, once you start eating and doing less steps and less cardio, you still have all those feels until you're fully recovered, right? So even if someone was like, I feel like shit, I need a refeed, or I feel like shit, I'm going to go binge, you're not going to recover. Like all those prep feels are going to be there as soon as you're done, right? With that refeed or that binge or that whatever that is. And I like to tell people, and I actually spoke to a couple people on the team this week, and I kind of gave this analogy. It's like, imagine prep is a journey that you're walking, right? You're walking through this prep journey, and all those prep feels, they're fucking right next to you. They're following you. They're looking over your shoulder. Now you can either concentrate on them and keep looking backwards and spend all your energy and effort on, putting time into those prep feels, or you could just acknowledge they're there, keep looking forward, know they're not going to go away, but just know they're there. Don't acknowledge that they're there, but don't spend any time, energy, and effort on them, because whatever you spend your time and energy and effort on becomes your reality, right? So look forward, look at all the positives, look at all the things you've got to get done, and the prep feels will be there, but just don't spend any energy on them, right? Just keep looking forward, keep looking forward. And I think that's something that people need to realize, is that they're going to be there. We can keep concentrating on them, giving them the time of day, keep complaining about them, or we can go, cool, you're there. I know you're there. And we'll keep moving forward. Like you boys, during my prep, you're like, you always got good energy. You always say you're all good. You always say you're not hungry. Yeah, fuck, I had all those things. Like they were all fucking there. I just didn't concentrate on any of them. So I was like, I know you're there. I'm not
going to feed into it
all the way through, but I'm not going to fucking pay you any attention.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we always talk about not verbalizing the negative things. And I think the thing that's important to remember is, like, if you think about our sport, to achieve anything like at an elite level, and let's just talk about being stage lean as like an elite outcome, it requires your heart and soul. And like, sometimes you need to be a little bit misunderstood by people as well. It's like, if you look at every other top level sport, we've spoken about this before, like you want to be a top level boxer, swimmer, you want to do MMA, you want to do basketball. It's not done in a 45-minute gym session per day. Now, we don't need more than 2 hours in the gym, but like where we earn our strides is the rest of it, right? It's the sacrifice, it's the diet, it's the expenditure, it's all these things. So, Scott said it off air last week, and I said it on air. It's like, just got to sometimes suck it up, right? Put your big boy pants on and just keep pushing through, because the end result is always going to be worth it. But just know that it's going to take something special to achieve something that you've never had before. Mm-hmm. So, like we always talk about, keep putting yourself in a position where you're feeling uncomfortable, but always keep walking forward. Never look backwards.
Yeah, 100%. And then the next thing is, okay, so you've got things you need to do, you need to achieve at the moment. Like everyone in season A at the moment, they know they've got to tick all their boxes. They've got non-negotiables, right? You've got to look after your sleep. You've got to get your steps in. You've got to get your meal prep in. You've got to make sure you're on point with your diet. You've got to get your training in. You've got to get your posing in, right? These are all non-negotiables. Everyone needs to protect them. Protect them and make sure that you spend all your time and energy on them. Obviously, some people might have a partner. They might have to go to work and things like that. They're also your non-negotiables, right? But try not to add anything else on your plate. If there's things that you can just put aside at the moment and not spend energy on, as long as you're protecting those non-negotiables, they should be the most important thing for you at the moment, especially when you're this close to the show, when you don't have the ability to make rational decisions sometimes, right? And sometimes you're acting like a robot and just clockwork. Try not to put anything on your plate. Like I tell clients, don't add anything new. Like don't move house, don't change jobs, don't get a new partner or get rid of a partner unless it's super toxic. Don't add anything new onto your plate unless you really, really need to. Protect your non-negotiables so you can execute them and stay adherent to them. So that's something super important for the people that are in season A at the moment, is just protect your non-negotiables. You're nearly there, and just give it your absolute best. It's all going to be worth it when it comes to that show day. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then obviously us boys are probably prepping people now for season B. We're probably getting plans in place for season B. I know you are, Scotty, right? Some of your boys have probably already started, right? I know you're starting this week, right?
Yeah, everyone else is there a couple of weeks in.
Yeah. So, some of the things that we kind of laugh at, and then we also hear other people saying, and we try to understand whether they're actually ready for this. Like, are they really know what's involved in a prep? Like, if someone's asking, as soon as you put out a prep plan, it's like, okay, so when do I get a refeed? So I've got this event and I've got these birthdays coming up. Can I have some untracked meals? How low are my calories going to go? All that kind of stuff. If they're already asking those questions now, they're in for an awakening for sure. Because you need to embrace the fact that maybe you can't go to social events, or you need to bring your own food. Your calories might get really, really low. You might not get any refeeds maybe to the end. Um, all these things are going to happen. So if you're doing it all for the right reasons, they're kind of the questions you probably shouldn't even be asking. You don't even really care. I know in my prep, when coach was giving me a refeed, my question would be, do I really need it? Is this going to make me better? And they'd be like, yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Like, you need this. Because I didn't want a refeed unless it was going to make me any better. Like, I didn't need it because I wanted more food. Because I know whenever I had a refeed, it made absolutely no fucking difference to all those prep fuels that were following me. They were all still there with refeed or no refeed. So I was like, don't give it to me because you feel sorry for me, because my calories are low, because I'm dragging ass. I don't care. Like, only give me a refeed if it's actually going to be worth my while and it's going to improve my physique and my look and my end result. Don't give it to me for any other reason, because I don't want it. And to be honest, every time I got a refeed, it didn't make one bit of difference. Like, my energy didn't go up. I didn't feel any less hungry. I didn't. Sometimes it actually made me hungrier. The next day I was hungrier. Did you ever
Yeah.
feel that, MG?
Oh, 100%, man. And you know what, man? Let's just, like, for round numbers, let's just say you were eating like 250 carb and it went up to 450 for a day. The 450 felt exactly the same as the 250.
Yeah.
It fucking didn't touch the sides any better, right?
Yeah.
So, so I think, yeah, but the three of us are pretty non-food motivated, except when it comes to Friday nights and we're in the car on the way to Savlakis. That's a different story. But otherwise, we're so, I suppose, focused on the end result and getting to the end physique, as quickly as possible, that the food for us isn't as desirable as the outcome. The outcome's always more desirable.
Yeah.
So I think what you said about, if that's your mindset, you're already starting to think about those things, refeeds, breaks. It's not wrong, but you probably need to find ways to shift your focus.
Yeah.
You need some tools to rejig the way you think about the prep. It's not about when do I get my break, when do I get my refeed. I would set different goals. I would set like specific aesthetic goals. It's like, oh, how long do you think it'll be until I see a bit more detail in my upper back?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and even though some of these questions are really, really tough to answer, it's a much better target than setting up for a food date.
Yeah, 100%. You pose this to Scotty when you look at someone's physique, like, okay, what we're looking for is for those glute ham tines to come in a bit tighter. What we're looking for is for this line to start showing a little bit more. So it actually gives someone a goal to be like, cool, that's what we're fucking doing. That's what we're going to go for. That's what I'm trying to achieve over the next couple of weeks for sure.
Yeah.
But I always say we don't do bodybuilding. We live bodybuilding, right? And it's all about lifestyle. If you're someone that is super social, always eating out, and doesn't know how to meal prep, doesn't know how to cook food, doesn't even know how to measure food, you've got to learn that stuff before you even think about bodybuilding, for sure.
Yeah, you got to integrate it in your life for sure, man.
Yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle thing. Anything on that, Scotty? I know you're nodding a lot and you're agreeing.
No, sorry. No, you got, mate.
No,
You
no.
guys are just doing a stellar job. No, you're 100%. I think it's one of those things, like we've spoken about, you have to be ready and you really need to know what you're signing up for when you go down this path, because if you're thinking about those things already, then perhaps, like, again, I would say, well, why are you thinking about that? You got to have a why. So if your why supersedes all of those other negative, bits and pieces that come with the contest prep, then it doesn't matter. Like, what does it matter? If you're hungry, do I want to win my pro card, or am I trying to be the best version of myself? I am. So the fact that I'm hungry means nothing to me. It doesn't matter. That I'm tired doesn't matter. But it just, again, if you have that why, and I think everyone goes through it, even on the toughest days, you refuse to deviate, because obviously your why is bigger than that. Like, the end destination and the process and knowing there's just something really beautiful about knowing you've gone through a contest prep and knowing that you didn't deviate once, you were flawless, and you were relentless in your pursuit to be better every single day. And if you apply that same methodology to anything that you do in life, you'll be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love it when
it's super fulfilling. You're right, man. Absolutely
yeah,
spot on.
like I love it when you go with friends and socialize, or you go to an event and I don't know, you packed your food or whatever, and they're like, "Oh my God, I couldn't do that. How do you do that?" I was like, "Dude, we do this for like 32 weeks,
Yeah.
every single fucking day, every single meal."
Man, you have fucking nailed it. You know how much I love going to functions and shit and being that guy?
Yeah,
I
I love
fucking
it.
love being that guy. And you know what? You know the funniest thing is, and I'm sure everyone who's listening can agree with this, when you fucking sit down with that meal, every single person around you, all of a sudden, all they want to fucking talk about is progress in the gym.
Yeah, of
His,
course.
his, his weightlifting, he's getting lean, his weight loss, how many calories should I be on? All of a sudden, the distant cousin you haven't spoken to for 1 year, who's 35 kilos overweight, wants to talk to you about how
Yeah.
he can lose weight. So fucking nice to be that person, man. And I reckon that one of the best things that I instilled in myself early in terms of like something to know is I if I'm not feeling hungry, I've made this correlation that I'm not progressing. So
Yeah.
hunger for me is like, yeah, if I'm hungry, I'm fucking burning fat. That's how my mind works. It's like, so if I'm in that hunger spot, I feel safe. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm progressing towards my goal. If I go through prep and I'm never hungry and I'm never dragging ass, I'm like, fuck, I'm not going to get lean enough. I'm not going to get lean enough. So turn hunger into a positive. If you feel hungry and you're in prep and you're dragging ass, it's like you're probably burning fat, right?
Hmm.
So that's your win. It's like if I'm hungry, I'm progressing.
Yeah. 100%.
It's not a negative. It doesn't always have to be a negative.
Yeah.
Not at all. The
And
opposite. Lean into it.
when you reflect back on your prep journey, you should be so proud of yourself. Like, fuck, I fucking did that. Like, I was dragging ass. I was hungry. My legs were always heavy and tired. I had to still get steps in. Like, you should be so proud of yourself that you pushed further than anyone else would have ever pushed, and further than what you've probably ever pushed in your life. And you did it. You achieved it. Like, it's absolutely crazy. Because you got to think that this is probably one of the only sports where we're going against natural survival, right?
It
Like
is, man.
you could sacrifice, for a different goal in life. Maybe it's to save money, to go for a job, to start a business, whatever that may be. And the only thing you're probably doing is maybe losing sleep, right? But you don't really, if you're like, I don't know, trying to open a business, trying to open a cafe, let's just say that, right? You're probably putting plenty of hours in towards that and trying to do that, and your probably sleep's being affected, but you don't give a fuck about what you eat. You don't give a fuck about if you train or not. You don't give a fuck about whether you got to do your steps. Like we're doing things that are obviously not only 24/7, but go against the grain of
Yeah.
what we want to do as a human being to survive. Like we are literally going through like a structured starvation, right?
Yeah. We're one of the only sports that don't fuel for performance.
Yeah,
Like adequately fuel, right? Like,
yeah,
so
yeah. So if you can get through a prep and absolutely nail it, you should be so proud of yourself. So all those
sure, man.
people that are grinding in season A at the moment, the end is coming near. It's all going to be worth it, and you'll be so proud of yourself once you're done. And those people that are going to be hitting season B, be prepared and also be ready and be excited about the end result and the journey that you're going to be going through and how proud of yourself you're going to be. Yeah.
And when you do your next bit of cardio, just listen to David Goggins, man. He'll make you rethink everything that you're doing.
I actually listened to a lot of David Goggins while I was training during prep.
Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah.
So I love that one MT, just off topic a bit, where he's like, the people think you're a machine, like you wake up, you're just so motivated. He's like, man, I fucking stared at my shoes for 35 fucking minutes this morning. I didn't want to put those on. It was 3:30 in the morning. I went out and ran, and the guy interviewing me was like, man, so you're so impressive. You run for hours, and he goes, days.
Let's talk about him for 1 second. You know what I love? Something that he does. So he gets a lot of negative comments on his, on his Instagram, on his social media, right? What he does is he reads them out loud and records himself reading them.
Yeah.
And then he plays them in his headphones as he's fucking training and as he's
yeah, man. Yeah. Oh, he's so good. Did you hear the one about, he talks about he doesn't use music when he trains, right? Because he's like, you need to be comfortable with your own thoughts while you're grinding. So if I'm out there smashing weights or I'm on a run, like it's me and me. I'm in my own head because when that music stops, I'm going to be there with myself. Can I deal with that, right? So he's like, okay, I listen to podcasts or I don't listen to anything. But then he's like, have you ever listened to music while you're playing? And he's like, once, when he set the world pull-up record, he listened to that 1 minute 17 song from Rocky 3 for 17 hours straight on repeat.
On repeat.
A 1 minute 17 song on repeat for 17 hours.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy mindset, but it's just like, it gives you a little bit of a taste as to like, okay, if I feel like I'm struggling, there is more. I can do a little bit more. I can do a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm trying to get out of it. Yeah.
It feels so good to like push through and get shit done. Like really push yourself and get shit done.
It's the most fulfilling feeling in the world, man, honestly.
Yeah. I love it. All right. We good, Scotty? Onto some questions?
Right. Good.
We're good? Sweet. All right. Okay, so I had a question here about, is it okay to, here we go. Is it okay to ask your coach for a refeed if you feel like you need it, but they aren't adding it in the plan? Or should I blindly follow the process? Okay, so put simply is communicate with your coach. Ask your coach. Ask your coach, is there any refeeds coming up? Can I have a refeed? And if they should justify the reasons why you should and why you shouldn't, right? So don't just blindly follow, well, you should follow the plan, but you should be asking questions and they should be able to give you answers. Communicate with your coach. I always tell people, it's like, tell me everything you're thinking and you're feeling. I'm here for your reassurance and for your education. So just tell me everything. Doesn't worry me at all.
You also have to decide, are you asking for that refeed because things are getting hard and you feel like you just want to make it a bit easier? Because I have had athletes go down that path being like, oh, I feel like I just need to boost performance, blah, blah. It's like, well, I feel like we still have X amount of fat we need to lose. And a day that we're refeeding you is a day that we're not liberating fat mass. So do you want to do as well as you can, or do you want to just feed into that, I want to make things a bit easier for myself? In prep, an analogy that I have and I stick by with everything, you need to learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And hunger is inevitable. So if you struggle with feeling hungry, then you should never compete because you're going to deal with that. It doesn't matter how much food you're eating. Once you get to that point from a body composition perspective where all of that hunger signaling is completely in the toilet and your leptin levels are extremely low because obviously the amount of adipose tissue you have is very low, then it's inevitable and it's going to be there whether you're refeeding 6 out of 7 days a week. You're still going to feel hungry.
100%.
It won't serve you any well. So it's different if you feel like you've been linearly dieting for X amount. And again, we know that refeeds don't give us any magic formula to be able to lose more weight, or, you might see a little bit of an upregulation in energy output via just greater perceived energy availability. But usually it's just for some psychological relief, or if you're trying to slow that rate of gain down or potentially top up muscle glycogen. So if someone's been linearly dieting for 6 weeks, and you're starting to see a little bit of a diminishment in training output, or recovery is a little bit bad, then it's like, you know what, let's deload you and we'll refeed or diet break and then we'll go again. But if you just want it because you're finding things a little bit different, then as we said before, you just need to put your big boy pants on and just keep moving forward.
Yeah. And your coach will tell you that. So
they should tell you that. And if they just give you that refeed because you asked for it and there's no justification, again, programming 101, whether it's nutrition periodization or whether it's training periodization, there's always going to be a reason behind why we're doing what we're doing. And if your coach can't justify it, then you've absolutely got grounds to have a case for it. But if they've got a plan in place, and one thing that I do with all of my athletes at the start of prep, we go through the outline of what the prep's going to look like, but also there'll be a summary roughly, again, subject to change from week 1 to when the show is, roughly blocks of linear dieting, roughly when we think we're going to start to introduce refeeds, when we're intending on having a diet break, again, subject to change, but it gives the person a little bit more clarity. So if you're, say, I've been dieting, I'm in week 10, and then on my original plan, coach said that I was going to start to have maybe 1 to 2 refeeds, and he hasn't put it in there, absolutely, ask that question. But if he says, to be honest, I just want to dig for 1 more week, because I think we have the ability to do that, and then instead of giving you refeeds, we're actually going to run a diet break a bit sooner. That might be the option. But again, I think open dialogue is important, but it's also important that you're realistic with where you're at on your fat loss journey. If you're behind, perhaps where you need it to be, even though you may have originally planned to start refeeding once or twice a week, if you are, say, 2 kilos of net fat loss behind where you need to be, then you've got to make that up somewhere. So maybe that means it's 2 or 3 more weeks where you're linearly dieting.
Yep. Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head there, Scotty. Okay, we had a question about fasted training. And this person here is with a coach, and she's in a build phase at the moment, and we're going into prep soon. And she trains early in the morning, and she trains fasted because she feels like it's so early she can't. It's like 4 a.m., so she can't digest any food. She doesn't feel like she can digest any food, but she will have whatever she needs to have post training if it's required. But she just can't get anything in before training. The coach has said that's unacceptable. Give us reasons why, Scotty, that is acceptable, and it can be done.
Firstly, training fasted. So from a substrate utilization perspective, the meal consumed the night before, I've got clients that are paramedics, that are cops, that start super early and that work out at 3:34. Their meal the night before is essentially like a pre-training meal. So it's very high carbohydrate, and there'll typically be a little bit more fats in there, so it slows that rate of digestion. So we've got carbohydrate available when we need it. But I definitely, I don't think it's acceptable to say that you can't have a form of amino acids or you can't sip on a whey isolate drink while you're training. You're going to ingest fluid while you're training. You want to get some sort of a protein spike. Otherwise, from a net breakdown perspective, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're coming off a fast. You haven't had a protein feeding. So from a muscle protein synthetic perspective, you need to get some protein on board. So did you say it was a female? Yep. So for females, at least a 20-gram bolus, and ideally 3 or 4 grams of leucine in there as well. But otherwise, if you just can't even drink an isolate, I would say you're better off sipping on an isolate than aminos. I've got some aminos here at the moment, but there's only 12 grams of protein there. That's not going to be sufficient. It's better than nothing, but they'd be better off just make an isolate and then drink that. So at least over the period of the workout, you're going to start to get a spike. But the other reason as well, we know that when we resistance train, that we get a muscle protein synthetic spike as well. And so if we pair that with a protein feeding, it elongates that process. So, if you're working out at that time and you're not having a feeding or a protein feeding for that matter, you're missing, essentially a big spike within your day that you should be consuming. So forget the carbohydrate and the fats. If you can just do that, then I don't see any problem with that whatsoever. As long as you're having a meal the night before that's got some good carbohydrate in it, and obviously, ideally, the meal before that as well, so that if you're in the improvement season, from a muscle glycogen saturation perspective, you should have plenty of carbohydrate on board. And then again, you would want to feed with some carbohydrate thereafter. If you're in a fat loss phase, sometimes it can be advantageous to sleep low from a lipolysis perspective. So the last meal you have before you go to sleep, it's high protein feeding, it's lower carbohydrate, because obviously when we consume carbohydrate, we blunt lipolysis. It doesn't matter. There's no way around it. We're just not liberating fat for that period of time. But I think context is important. So is this person in prep or out of prep?
So they're in a build phase at the moment, but they will be going to
build phase. In that case, then there's no dramas at all. You should be eating enough calories throughout the day. And again, you should have enough of a bolus of carbohydrate to consume in those last 2 meals before you go to bed. That carbohydrate's not going anywhere when you sleep. Like, your body will partition it, and that glycogen will be there and readily available when you need it. So the only thing that I would do is I would probably not have aminos. I would, if you can't have even like the things that I give both the girls that I train, that I work with that train at that time, they just have 2 rice cakes with 20 grams of honey on it. So it gives them essentially 40 grams of carbohydrate, and that is super easy to digest. And then they sip on a whey isolate shake while they train.
Yeah.
And there's been times in prep where they've worked out at that time and they didn't have the ability and they didn't want to waste carbohydrate to that. So we added more of that to their evening meal, and they just had their shake during the workout. And then after their workout, they didn't have a shake and they just had their meal one.
Meal one. Yeah, perfect.
Which had protein.
So it can definitely be done.
Absolutely. So to say that it shouldn't be done, is it optimal as perhaps getting a carbohydrate feeding in? Having a carbohydrate feeding is going to be beneficial, but I've had to train at 4 o'clock before, and I have tried eating a normal breakfast and I ended up vomiting halfway through deadlift. So I typically would be inclined to have rice cakes or just sip on your shake. That's totally fine. Just make sure your last meal's got some good calories in it.
Man, I'll tell you a funny story. When I did my prep like 11 years ago, my first ever show, and for the first half of my prep, I was training in the morning, and then it got too cold. But
Yeah.
anyways, I was training in the morning. I would literally do this. I would have a shake already, like a little bit like a smoothie that had some carbs and protein in it, already in the fridge I'd made the night before.
Hmm.
I would wake up, drink it, go back to bed to get some like half an hour more sleep,
Oh,
and then go to the gym. And it worked
Yep.
out fine.
Whatever
that was all
means
right.
necessary.
It was fine, man, because I could get to sleep like that. It was all good. But yeah, then I couldn't train in the morning. It got too cold. Like in winter, I'd go to the gym, and it would take me so long to warm up. I was like, I'm wasting time here. Like,
Hmm.
so I moved it to night training. But that's how I had to do it. But my digestion was fine back then. Now
Yeah.
I'm too old and delicate, you know.
Yeah. You could also, there's no reason why you couldn't, depending on if it's a female, she probably wouldn't want to waste carbohydrate towards like a dextrose or
Yeah,
a Targo, something like that. But you could always ingest it via that, or you could have some, MG's a big fan of Gatorade. I've got him on the cordial train now. You could have some cordial and
yeah,
then just have and then have your shake that you sip on. Wouldn't be doing you any harm. Like 30, 40 grams of carbohydrate via that. And to be honest, if you're going to have a glucose solution like that, it's not the worst time to be having it because again, you're literally about to go straight into the gym and to utilize that. So that substrate's available straight away. So you could do that as well. There's always ways. The best bodybuilders are always able to troubleshoot.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, next question. Uh, so this person's never competed before, and they're wondering if their coach is a good fit. They're natty, and their coach was natty when they first started with them, and now they're no longer natty. She's an online coach, but she's traveling a lot, and that's now seems to be her priority. Should I stick it out uh, and do her season with her, or should she find someone else? So I kind of responded to this because this came straight after we did the potty last week. And I was like, oh, I don't want her to wait that long. So just in case she wanted that answer, but I said, we're definitely discussing the potty still. And I said, whether that coach is natty or not shouldn't really matter. It really depends on their abilities and their success and their results with their clientele and, how they work and their experience level and all that kind of stuff. The priorities thing was the one that really troubled me. I said, well, if the coach now has other priorities other than being a coach, and that's not her priority anymore, that's what I'd be worrying about. You know, us boys, we know how we are. We love this sport. We love being a coach. Probably sometimes to our detriment because we put way too much into it when maybe sometimes we should give back to ourselves. But it sounds like this person is the other way around. They're not prioritizing their business or their coaching or their clients, and they're prioritizing traveling and living their life. So that was the kind of feedback I gave. Do you boys have anything to add? Maybe MG, if you want to go.
Yeah, I would just say like, are there starting to be signs that show that you are becoming less and less of a priority? Things like, are the check-ins getting less often? Are they missing check-ins? Is there no good explanations? Is the methodology starting to become questionable? Is there no reasoning behind the strategy? They're the type of things. I mean, at the end of the day, if the person's just traveling, but you're still getting, good prompt check-ins, your messages are being answered promptly. There's nothing in the methodology that you're questioning or seems out of whack. I don't think it's necessary to reconsider another coach if everything's ticking the box just because somebody's busy. Because I know some seriously busy people that can do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just about the type of service that you're getting. And if you're starting to feel like you're not getting, your check-ins are being missed or your questions aren't being answered or that type of stuff, that's different. Then for sure, I would definitely be moving on if it was me. But if everything's being done well, I would say things totally fine. Particularly if you're mid-prep, you're halfway through a prep, it sounds like you're saying, should I leave this season or should I see this show out? If you're middle of a prep, again, but there's obviously reasons why you're questioning this. I don't think it's just the trouble. There's obviously other factors that are causing you concern. Mm-hmm. So it's just about how serious those factors are.
What do you think, Scotty? Anything to add there?
Yeah, I would be interested as to why you're asking that question. And I think to lean into what MG said just then, perhaps is that there's some red flags that it may be that there's some certain protocols or the way that things are being done that perhaps don't align, or maybe now you're realizing you're speaking to one of your friends who's coached by Michael Trimboli and this is what he does, and it's not quite the same as what I'm getting. Maybe this is what I should be getting. And I thought what I was getting is normal. And this is the thing, you don't know if you don't know. So the first coach you have, that's what you're exposed to. So you more or less associate this is what online coaching is, versus then you might move on to Michael Galanti and it's like, wow, I get this and I get this, and he cares about that. And he responds to me within 2 or 3 hours if I have a question that I might feel like is dumb, versus waiting 48 hours. He wants to see how I'm lifting. You know, and I feel like he's as invested in the process as what I am. And so I think with online coaching, unfortunately, there is a lot of people that are getting into it for the wrong reasons, because it's associated with an element of convenience throughout your life. You can travel, I do a few check-ins, you send some macros, whatever, but you know, it's still a job. Like, I know you guys do the same thing. I have windows of time that are blocked out, the set day, the same persons that check in on those given days. And you have a responsibility to that athlete. So if you feel that you're not perhaps getting what you think you could be getting elsewhere, then you need to weigh that up. But yeah, maybe there's a greater why behind that you're asking yourself that. But
Yeah, that's
I
what I
think
was
if you're
thinking.
having to ask those questions, there probably is an underlying issue there, and maybe you just need to identify what that is.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a contest prep is such a costly both time, money, endeavor. And it's one of those things where if you're going to undergo that process, you want to have the best experience and do it in the most optimal way that you can. And so it's really important that you find the right person that resonates with you and that their values align with your values. And as we always say, you should do your homework, like, and identify. And so if you're not sure if this person's right, then have a couple of consults with some people that perhaps you're questioning. Maybe if I was going to leave this person, who would I go and get? I would go and maybe want to speak with Michael Trimboli or Michael Galanti or whoever it would be, and then organize a consult, sit down, ask you questions, and then you'll be able to tell. You can tell within 15 minutes, yep, this is it's a done deal, or nah, it's just not quite what I'm looking for, and maybe I'm good where I am. So you won't really know unless you engage in that, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. I don't think. At the end of the day, you've got to look out for numero uno.
100%. That's good advice, boys. Another coaching client question. So this person signed up for 12 months with an online coach that was highly recommended overseas, but they've realized that 3 months in, they're not a good fit. Can they get their money back?
Well, I don't think I've never put anyone on a term ever. Like any coach who's confident in the work that they do, week to week is like
no lock-in, yeah.
So easy. It's so easy. It's a bit easy for me too. So like the fact that you need to secure something for 12 months, unfortunately from a legal perspective, depending on what paperwork and stuff you sign and send back, potentially you can't, which sucks.
If you paid everything up front.
100%, which is I'm sure would happen.
Yeah.
Or even if you're on a contract, it's exactly the same as a phone or a gym membership where you pay weekly, but you sign for 12 months, and you want to get out of a phone early and upgrade, they'll make you pay out the rest of that contract. So I hope you can, but I don't think that you can. Again, it's, if you've signed nothing or it was just all done, via just an email back and forth, potentially you might be able to, but highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Just based on like I know with our contracts, we use a debit company that does the contracts for us. So all the legalities in that contract were done by a professional so that the business gets protected, right?
Yep.
So hope you can, but don't know.
Are you the same, Scotty?
Yeah, I don't think you'll be able to get your money back, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
it depends
it
what
sucks,
they find.
but people like that, especially overseas, I've had people that have done that have left coaches and have ended up having, sounds, I feel bad for them, but having to pay, so they'll sign on with me, but they're also paying out their coach because they were signed in on a contract and the person they were working with just stops responding.
Yeah.
That's why, again, you got to do your due diligence.
Yeah. And it's so funny because like they mentioned about this was highly recommended. I don't know if that's recommended personally or recommended because on social media they look like they're reputable. We see that all the time. don't judge a book by its cover. And I mean that in a bad way. Talk to their clients,
Yeah.
talk to their past clients. Yeah, it's a tricky one. Okay, let's go to just a quick question, or maybe it's a quick one. Thoughts on collagen protein as opposed to whey protein? Any thoughts, Scotty? Collagen over whey? Do you know much about
Collagen is inferior to whey. So
it?
whey isolate it's the
Okay.
gold standard. So in terms of a muscle protein synthetic spike, collagen doesn't compare to that. But there's some. I've actually got I've got a couple of my athletes that come back from injury, and there's some good research around supplementing collagen type 1 and 3 with vitamin C in terms of aiding in musculoskeletal tissue repair, so connective tissue like tendons and ligaments and whatnot. But other than that, so there's actually a recipe that I came up with. They're like little Jello shots. But if you were choosing between trying to have a collagen protein or a whey isolate post-training, there's no question collagen is inferior to the whey isolate. But can it be advantageous to include? It can be, but again, unless you're taking it for those reasons, if you're coming off a surgery or for whatever reason, but again, I wouldn't even worry about taking that in a protein form. I would just take type 1, type 3 collagen and you pair that with some vitamin C. And again, there's some good data behind that being advantageous to synthesizing new tissue.
Scott, can you bring some collagen jello shots to my birthday?
I'll send you the recipe for it, bro.
I've actually got collagen protein in my cupboard. I think I won it or someone gave it to me at a show or something. I've got to give it a shot. Maybe make me look younger. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's not well.
You
But in
already
terms of
you
it's
already
no
look
more
in your prime.
anabolic.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to get huge.
Well, you might because you're microtribolic, but for the rest of us, just inferior genetically human beings, we unfortunately don't have the same DNA.
Yeah, I don't take compliments well, so thanks, mate. Talking about
I wouldn't be able to
anabolic.
handle staring at your beautiful face on a screen, and then you're going to go and add some collagen protein powder. You're just gonna you're just separating me and me just down here.
Shut the gates.
Jesus, take them up.
Talking about anabolic, someone asked, are Suvos anabolic, and should we include them in prep?
Well, I think if we were to conduct a meta-analysis across us, we would probably say that they definitely are anabolic. Yeah,
Man, I've eaten 2 last 2 weeks in a row. I've doubled up, man.
Mm-hmm. But in terms of having them during prep, do you know what? Like, I know the ones that I have, they don't have, other than the meat, you'd have to allow for some oil. But mine's, I bring my own wraps, and I had lettuce and tomato. It wouldn't be hard to include it, but you wouldn't, because our rule is in prep, unless it's cooked by your hands, you don't eat it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. But that was James asked that question. So James is a guy that comes for, so it's awesome, right? We have Suvos every Friday night. James is now in prep. He still comes. Still hangs out with the boys, has a Coke Zero, has a black coffee later.
That's it.
It should be.
Life doesn't have to stop. It's something that's like, I think a lot of people forget. It's like, we're fortunate, right? Because our friend circle is all in the sport. We all love it. We all get it. Yeah. But equally, you don't have to miss out on events. So many times throughout prep, like even our other group of friends, right? MT would still come on Friday night. And, even if I wasn't there, I'm probably the one that is a bodybuilder, and still come and have a black coffee or eat at home and then come a little bit later. You can still do things. I would just say this: if your friend circle is one that, doesn't support you, and remember what I said earlier about sometimes you do have to be misunderstood to be successful, right? Don't be scared of being misunderstood at times. Then don't put yourself in that situation where you're going to get this is what I hate. One's not going to hurt. One's not going to hurt. So that one is just, that one's going to hurt. It's going to hurt my fucking mindset. That's what the one's going to hurt. And I need to be sharp as a tack. So I would just say, like, go out to things, eat your food first, go have a black coffee, have a Coke Zero, but don't put yourself in situations where you're going to be constantly nagged.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you're in the right circle, they shouldn't be nagging you anyway.
No.
Man, when you're best friends with Michael Trimboli, that's the right circle, man. Mr. Collagen Anabolic.
Suvos. Hey, we go on Friday night, and half of the boys aren't into bodybuilding or fitness, and the other half are?
Exactly.
Fine, man. Like, no one It's just about hanging out with friends, right? It's all it's about. It's not even about the Suvos, to be honest.
It's just about all of us holding our mate's
The
beautiful
environment.
daughter.
Oh, little Sophia, she's so cute, man. She's so fucking
We
cute.
love passing her around.
Yeah.
She's an angel.
All right. Last one. Let's finish on this one because I think maybe Scotty might be able to help with this one. Uh, Mum of a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, soon to start prep. Tips on parent life during prepping. Scotty, you're the only one that can help us on this one. We've got advice because we prep mums in that situation.
Mhm.
You're a parent and you've gone through prep, so any tips?
Yeah, well, you're about to start prep. I'm just starting prep too, and I've got two under three as well. But I think first things first, you need to be super, super organized, but always remember there's absolutely nothing wrong with you putting your and it should be in that order. I know for me, I actually had this conversation with my wife last night about with prep that your family and everything to do with that comes first. Like their needs always have to come first. So if it means that you have to train at a time that's less ideal for you, but it's better for them, then that's the way that, in my opinion, that it should be, because bodybuilding is such a selfish sport. And so unfortunately, one of the things that we don't have the luxury of doing anymore is to be completely selfish, because you've got to look after like their needs. And again, this is my opinion, but this is how I think it should be. They have to come first. So being super organized and managing yourself so that you know when you're training, you know what you're eating, you know when you're eating, all those things should be mapped out well in advance. And again, you want to have open dialogue so that your partner knows that as well. Again, I think it can be beneficial to have your meal plan on the fridge, for example, so they know what you're having. So for example, there could be some cooked chicken breast or whatever that's there, and your partner goes to get it, but they're like, oh, actually, Janine's meant to have chicken in her last meal. If I eat that, you know, that could affect her last meal. Then she's got to go down to the shops, pain in the ass. So things like that, but just make sure that you're organized. And I think that's the biggest thing, because if you're organized and you're willing to accept that there's going to be some days where you've got to train and you've had a shit night's sleep because your kids have been up, happens to me all the time. Is it ideal? No. But again, when you're communicating with your coach too, if your sleep's down, sometimes it's not by choice that you got 5 hours. It's because you had I had my daughter was sick. We didn't sleep on the Thursday night. She was up all night. And so sometimes you have that, but you just got to keep soldiering on, and everything that you feel is enhanced further when you're in prep. So when you're tired, you feel so much more tired. So it's going to be harder. But again, you have to always remember that you're choosing to do this and that no one is forcing you. So you never, ever have a right to begrudge them or to take out frustration on them, because we're choosing to do this. So what you're doing has nothing to do with them, and it should never impact them. And I think if you do that, you'll be fine. But it definitely does get harder at the back end when you're lean and your kids want to go and play on the trampoline and chase me and carry me. They don't understand that you're on a severe amount of food and you're hungry and you're tired, or those things come into it. And another thing that you actually have to be mindful of is trying to eat perhaps when the kids aren't around, because my kids steal my food. So you could be sitting down, seriously, you're sitting down, oh, can I have what you're having? So if you're going to have your yogurt and cereal, maybe make them a bowl too, so that they don't end up taking any of your hard-earned gains. That's the truth, man. It happens.
100%. I couldn't agree more with what you said, and I think just to add to that is, having a supportive partner or supportive people around you, and ask for help too. Like, don't think you're Superwoman and you can do absolutely everything. It's okay to ask for help sometimes too.
And check in with your partner too. So I'm a big advocate. Every 2 weeks, sit down, check in. How are you going? How do you think I'm going? Because sometimes it can be, you might think that you're going beautifully and that you're managing everything well, but it's like, well, you're a bit closed off and you're a bit robotical. But also explain, I think especially for females, when you get to that point and you lose your libido, and so the desire to want to be intimate with your partner can sometimes change. So sometimes it can be nice to find other ways. It might be like going on a date, going on walks together, things where you can do something that perhaps aligns with what you're doing, but also lets them know that you still love them, you're still attracted to them. But obviously from an endocrinological perspective, it's just your hormones are severely downregulated. So you just it's just not there at the moment, because it's a physiological thing. It's not that you just no longer want to, spend time and be intimate with them, because that's something that a lot of couples struggle with in contest prep. And it's something that I think you need to have open dialogue about so that your partner understands.
Yeah. That was actually another question, but we can as it get to it now is, does sex drive drop during prep? And the answer is yes. For
If you're
males
getting
and
lean
for
enough,
females.
yeah, it does. It
You get
should.
lean
If
enough,
if
yeah.
you've still got it, then you probably aren't lean enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes a while to recover too. We spoke about this on Friday night, one of the Friday nights, and we went into a little bit more detail than what we should probably on this
Yeah.
potty. But yeah, we all had those effects. Yeah, definitely all had those effects. And it took some time to recover too, for sure. So it's definitely something to expect, or that you might come across during prep, for sure.
And again, that's one of the reasons why when we exit the dieting condition and we enter a recovery phase, that's a big part as to why we employ recovery diet, those that want to try and stay shredded, because you may be able to get some recomposition and stay super lean, but you're not going to attenuate any of those down regulations from a sex hormone perspective
No.
until you get some fat mass back.
Mm-hmm.
So you're delaying the inevitable in that sense. So that's why as soon as you're done, you want to just get out, get in, get out, and
Yeah.
get back to being a normal person again.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's leave it there, boys. That was a good one. Covered a lot of good topics.
Legends. Good chat, lads.
Always.
That's it, boys. We will catch up very, very soon. I'm going to see you boys
Catching
later.
up Friday, are we? We've got a
Catch
meeting
up
on Friday.
Friday, yep. For our little talk about some future endeavors that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go from there.
What's
That's it.
up?
Thanks, everyone, for all your questions.
Thanks for listening.
And
Thanks,
we'll
guys.
talk to you all soon.
Chat soon. See you Friday, boys.